Okay, guys, let's go. Welcome back to another episode 5 of the Ojiako podcast or the Ojiako show, whichever title you fancy. And so, yeah, let's get right into it. The UFC Fight Island 7 this past weekend, this past Saturday, the 16th of January 2021. It was a stacked card. Both, I have to say, more so, of course, the main card, the main event, the main card more so than the preliminary card, but the preliminary card still was pretty impressive. So I'll start with the main event: Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. I think I got it correct when I was listening to the commentators as Calvin Kattar, not Calvin Kattar. So sorry about that if you listened to my last podcast and I got it wrong. Calvin Kattar. And now these guys fought from the featherweight division, and I say Max Holloway was what can I say? I mean, at UFC 250, was it? Yeah, you think UFC 251, he fought Alexander Volkanovski, the Australian mixed martial artist. I saw the way he fought. He was good. He was really, really good. I mean, I even asked my coach at the time, who do you think won that fight? Obviously, it was Max Holloway. Even as a novice myself, that from the way it looks, he won that fight. And this fight that he just won just a few days ago at UFC Fight Island 7 over in Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, it was awesome. He was on fire in that cage. When it's just basically not to insult Calvin Kattar, but just beating the life out of Calvin Kattar. I mean, credit to Calvin Kattar, as the commentators and all other people that are giving their 2 cents on the event. Credit to Calvin Kattar. Even though he didn't win, he still put up a good defense and a good match for good fight for Max Holloway. Strong chin. He did well. But of course, Max Holloway was the better fighter. I mean, Holloway was dishing out. He got the ball rolling at the beginning of the fight with heavy strikes and a couple of spinning back kicks, straight to Kattar's midsection. And as I was watching this, and as I said just a few minutes ago, it reminded me again of UFC 251. And at the end of this fight, I texted my friend Charlie, who I've mentioned many times before in my videos and my podcast. I mentioned to Charlie that I guess that the judges who were spectating, who were judging the winner for UFC 251 when Holloway fought Volkanovski, I guess they are eating their words, or probably just racking their brains, thinking, what the hell were we thinking giving the win to Volkanovski when it was clearly Max Holloway was the better fighter. But I'm guessing that you can't compare then the past with the present, because between one event, if the fighter is still, if the contract's still running with the particular organization, in this case the UFC, between the previous fight and the current fight, they of course have got enough time to do whatever they need to do, make weight, cut weight, practice, do plenty of sparring, really prepare themselves to just better their fight game. Although in this case, Max Holloway did make it clear at the post press conference after the fight. He said that he didn't do any sparring in preparation for this fight, that he sparred so many times before that there's no need for a heat. As in, what in this game, if you've been doing it for as long as he's been doing, even though he's only 29 years old, he's just about on the right side of 30, even though he turns 30 this year. If you've been doing what you're doing for so long, then you know what to expect. You know what you signed up for, so you know what to expect. Nothing really is going to be different except for who's going to win this competition. And that I can see the sense behind it, because you want to protect yourself and protect especially your brain as much as possible while you're doing this sport, as it's a sport that they love, and it's a sport that people like myself, I enjoy doing as a hobby, not to compete, but just to train the kickboxing, the boxing side of things. Very therapeutic, but for them, they enjoy doing it, and that's great. But of course, he's being smart by looking at the health risks and the health risk with regards to things like your brain, because when this goes, really, there's absolutely nothing you can do to get it back to what it was once before. The doctors and nurses can do whatever they can. Likewise with this COVID-19 virus that's going on around the world now, this pandemic, there's only so much they can do, even with this vaccine. So he's just using a common sense approach, and that's wise. But still, of course, I'm sure he did everything else he's supposed to do to prepare for this fight. So no, I'm really, really glad. He's a humble guy, and to point this out, I wrote this down in my notes. Towards the end of the fight, I think there's something that one of the commentators said, and the venue was empty, but Max Holloway heard them say it. I'm just trying to find my notes. Yeah, I think as the round 5, it seems clear who the winner is. Of course, it's Max Holloway, and then one of the commentators makes the remark, "This fight's not even touched the ground." Yeah, and I point that out as well. There was no takedowns, no grapplings, nothing. Both guys were on their feet the whole time, for the whole 5 rounds. The commentator said this fight's not even touched the ground, no takedowns, and then this did trigger Holloway to say, "I'm the best boxer in the UFC." Now, I did think about it, and I also did put, I thought about it, and at the same time, I did check myself that I'm not a professional. I'm still a novice in this sport. I'm still learning so much all the time, but based on what I've seen, I've just seen him fight and seen some other people fight as well. When he says he's the best boxer in the UFC, well, there's other people, of course, that you need to compare that to gauge how good he actually is. I mean, after this match that he's had now against Kattar, some people are saying that maybe perhaps he could fight Conor McGregor. In fact, quite a few people want to fight Conor McGregor because Holloway has fought Conor McGregor before. I'll just find my notes. I think it was at UFC. Come on. It wasn't too long ago. Yeah, it was at UFC Fight Night 26. This is back in 2013. Conor did win that fight, but based on his performance with the match we had just the other night in Abu Dhabi, potentially could he have a rematch with Conor McGregor? I'm assuming that it is a fight that most people like to see. I would like to see that alongside the fights, of course, with Dustin Poirier. But Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, that's official. That's going to happen. I like to see a rematch with Khabib and McGregor, but again, that's something that has to be sorted out by the UFC, and Dana has to give his approval to whether that fight's going to happen or not. But yeah, that was a good match, and there are people are now debating, they're talking about and thinking about whether he is the best boxer in the UFC, and not forgetting what Kattar called Holloway before the match, because Holloway did mention this as he was shouting at the commentators. The freshman came to play because Kattar called him that. I think Kattar called him a freshman. Yeah, Kattar called him a freshman, and he said, "Look, in this sport, I'm a senior. I've been doing it for so long." Basically, calling Holloway a freshman, meaning that he's still a newbie to the sport, and Kattar will easily beat him. But unfortunately, Kattar was proven wrong, badly wrong in the cage. In the cage that night, because a freshman doesn't fight like the way Max Holloway fought that night in the cage. Absolutely no way, because a freshman basically is in the name itself. Fresh man, you're fresh. You're a joint just come. You don't know what you're doing, so you're not going to go in there all guns blazing, because number one, you're not even confident in what you're doing. So I'm sure he's eating his words while his all the stitches and whatever is all healing up in his and the cuts and stuff. I am the freshman, as Holloway said. I'm the freshman, and he said this in the press conference. I'm the freshman that came up and took your girlfriend. So that was a great fight. Loved it, and it was a great performance. Moving on to the next one, Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. Now this is the welterweight division. Good fight. So the first round, both guys got into it, exchanging strikes and leg kicks. Brown seeing got Condit in takedown, and Brown did do a good job of keeping Condit pinned to the canvas floor. And it was in this fight that I did notice that that their ground game, the grappling was pretty good, because they stayed on the floor, on the ground, on the canvas floor there for what seemed like nearly a minute. A whole minute passed and Brown still had Condit pinned squarely and firm to the ground. So I should say that in this case, Brown's grappling and ground game, his takedowns are pretty good, because they stayed squarely on the floor there for a long time. So after that, Condit managed to break free, and but again, Brown still managed to grab a hold of him and put him down on the floor again. So after a minute or so had passed by, Condit again nearly manages to break free, but Brown still again manages to grab him and continue at the second takedown. I don't know what else I can say about this fight, about sounding silly again. I'm learning so much about it, and I watched a lot of fights before making this podcast now, so a lot of it's left my mind. But in that match, it was Brown who won the fight. No, it wasn't Brown. It was Carlos who won that fight. Carlos Condit, the natural born killer, wins. Okay, so moving on to the next fight, which was a Chinese fighter fighting out of China, Li Jingliang versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Now, this was part of the welterweight division also, and I think this was one of those fights, because there were several fights on the main card that ended. I said to Charlie, and basically the fights ended even before they even started, and this was one of them. So the first round started. Both fighters basically pacing around the octagon, and Lee got the ball rolling. He landed the first strike. Still, as round one is still progressing on, not much has happened except for a strike and a leg kick here and there. So while I was watching, and I was watching the highlights, and just the other day, and really this is something that every mixed martial arts or sports fan should know. When it comes to like something like MMA, I found that just the other day. Charlie told me this, and again, it's something I should have known. Most of the fighting organizations, for all of them, UFC, Bellator, One Championship, they have this app whereby I think they've got like a server, and they store all their past fights on there. I'm not sure how long it stays on there for, but they store their past fights on there, and through the app you can access their past fights and watch it again. And I hold my hands up, I haven't even downloaded it to any of my devices, so I know that looking at those, using that platform to watch the fights instead of going onto YouTube and looking at highlights that other people recorded with their TV sets or whatever, it's going to be far better. But this fight basically ended with Lee landing a really heavy left hook, and basically ended up in a knockout, and it all happened basically in the first round. So it was crazy, and I have to say, it's something else I've kind of come to learn in mixed martial arts, that you can be fighting and just doing what you're supposed to do in the octagon, but if one of the, and I think it's obvious really, even in other combat sports such as boxing, if one of the opponents really lands a really heavy shot, a heavy kick, if it's a combination of strikes that causes a knockout, or a left hook, or just a single strike that causes a knockout, then the fight's over and it's done, and that person has won. So when I sat there, I was thinking, God, I'm going to have to sit through, because I couldn't see the actual fight, I'm going to have to sit through like a whole half hour's worth of fighting. But no, that's not always the case. If one of them just knows that they want to win so badly as they want to breathe air, then it can be over before it's even started. And the next fight kind of ended the same way. It's one of those fights I said to Charlie. It's one of those fights that it ended before it even started. This is Alessio Di Chirico versus Joaquin Buckley, the middleweight division. And I remember Joaquin's last fight, which he won, and then this fight, which he lost. I think in that fight, the guy he was fighting, he was significantly older than he was, something but nearly 10 years older. I can't remember his name, but Joaquin won that fight by a knockout also, and well, he lost this fight by a knockout. So, God, I'm not trying to shit on fighters or trying to make a joke of it, but would I say it's karma or anything like that? But you know, when they say what goes around comes around. But yeah, both guys were pacing on the octagon. Buckley was keeping close to his opponent and always trying to close that gap, not giving the guy any space at all. But then somehow Chirico just having to land just out of nowhere, just lands a KO, and Buckley just goes straight onto the floor and straight onto the floor, and the other guy just manages to get more strikes in. The other guy, whose name is Alessio Di Chirico. Sorry, I'm just trying to pronounce these names properly. Alessio Di Chirico, while he issued that knockout, he just started issuing out some more strikes. And at the beginning of the fight, the first leg kick that was the first leg kick that was dished out, I heard a noise and I actually thought it was bone breaking or buckling somehow. When I asked Charlie, he said that when both legs, or you know, when you kick your opponent hard in a leg kick, he said that when both legs touch, when they make a clean contact, but a heavy hard contact, you actually hear that noise. He actually went back and listened to it so he could understand what I was talking about, because I thought, you know, that someone's bone had probably just somehow a fracture or something, because it sounded like a crackling, popping noise. That's what it sounded like to me. But he said no, that's expected, because it was so loud it was picked up by the mic. Now the next fight, which was Punahele Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic, the middleweight division. One thing I did notice was that Todorovic was moving to avoid quite a few of the shots being dished up by Soriano, and even though Dusko seemed to be somewhat calm, Soriano was still dishing out plenty of heavy strikes, and even I think there was a knee as well. And at one point during the first round, Dusko did trick. Yeah, this is something that DC Chromia did talk about. Him and some of the other guys were commentating cage side, and also something I remember from one of my past kickboxing classes. MMA athletes, I mean, from what I've learned, from what I've seen, like your mind when you're in there, when you're competing or even training, your mind has to be like working so fast, because when you're defending yourself, that's fine. But when you're defending yourself, unfortunately, another part of your body is exposed to attack. And what happened in this match, I remember, who was it? Yeah, Todorovic got Soriano into position where he nearly had the opportunity to get a really, really nasty uppercut, because he kind of scared Soriano into a feint, as they call it. If I'm wrong, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do kindly correct me in the comment section down below. But one of the guys commentating said that Soriano was got into position whereby he kind of fainted, but he had kind of like had to guard himself like this, just guard his face with his hands and his wrists. And I think as he did so, he crouched down, and his opponent Todorovic nearly had the opportunity to just send a really heavy uppercut into his head, which really, if it connected, would have done some serious damage. But you know, again, that kind of like goes back to the point I was making, that in this sport, you know, when you're competing or when you're training, one of the things I've learned is that when you're taught how to guard yourself, you got to do so also bearing in mind that another part of your body is being left open for attack. Because again, if you guard yourself just with your hands and your wrist, guard your face, the lower half of your body is exposed to attack. So you can guard yourself like that and crouch down. The other opponent can land a really heavy, nasty hook or just nasty strike to the top of your head while your face is covered, or they can even knee you. They can even give you a really nasty leg kick. So again, it's just one of the things about MMA. There's lots of ways, and was quoted by DC Chrome, professional mixed martial artist. It's obvious, but I'm saying that he said it, but it is obvious. In this sport, there's many ways that your opponent can trap you and trick you. Just lay many ways for you that you think you're okay if you do this, but no, actually, not if you do this to guard yourself as you normally. Common sense will suggest that's what you're supposed to do, but if you do that, you actually could be leaving yourself exposed to something far worse. And just to top it off, this was a good fight. I think Soriano actually won by KO. Sorry guys, I have to watch so many fights when I'm making this podcast, and if I was talking with someone, actually it's a lot better. But it is what it is. But if I was talking with someone, it just helps. It also, as I'm learning from them, especially if there's someone who's far more vested in this sport than myself, I'm still very much a novice. I feel very much like a novice, which I feel like there's so much left to learn. If I'm talking with someone who knows a lot more than I do, I feel like I'm learning. And also, we're talking about a recent match that's happened. I can still, of course, it'll be easier for me to remember what's happened in the match, so you have to excuse me. I made so many notes. But in that match, Soriano won by a heavy KO. Now on to the next one. This is the first female fight. Jocelyn Edwards versus Wu Yanan, the women's bantamweight division. Now they started basically by exchanging some strikes, leg kicks. Wu Yanan, the Chinese fighter, she got the first takedown in, and whilst grappling the floor, Edwards managed to get Yanan in a triangle. Yanan actually managed to get. I think Yanan actually managed to get. God, what did I write about this? Well, no, the two girls were, sorry, not to be disrespectful, but the two fighters were on the ground there, not giving an inch. Each one was maintaining a really tight grip. So that was some good ground game. But eventually, Yanan managed to break free, and she managed to get on top of Edwards, but not for long. As she did so, oh God, what? Edwards now got on top of Yanan, and she started dishing out some really heavy blows. The first round ended with both fighters grappling on the floor and exchanging strikes while they're doing so. What stood out to me, and I made notes for it, was that each one did seem to have some good ground game. Now, when I say ground game, I'm assuming that basically is how you fight, or how you tackle your opponent, how you defend yourself against your opponent when you're on the floor, on the canvas floor, after being taken down. So with a triangle, whilst you're grappling, I'm assuming, to me, that is what ground game is. If it's not, again, I'm still learning so much about this sport. Please correct me in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube. So now in the second round, both fighters were pacing, exchanging strikes and leg kicks, and I did notice that Yanan, out of the two fighters, she did seem to be the more and this is something that really I saw from the get-go, from the beginning of the first round. She did seem to be, out of the two fighters, a much sharper, agile, quick fighter. Always trying to get in there first, trying to get a good strike in, get a good heavy strike, leg kick, or a good hook in there. Edwards did seem just slightly a bit more relaxed. I'll cut that long story short, because I made a lot of notes here, but I don't want to ramble on too much about it. Edwards actually won that fight. I mean, I would have thought that with all the just by looking at the fight, how many strikes that Yanan got in there, how she was fighting, how it looked like she was much more determined out of the two to actually win that competition. I actually thought that Yanan would have won that fight, but no, it turns out that actually it was Edwards. Okay, now on to the next one, back to the men's fight, which is a heavyweight division. Carlos Felipe versus Justin Tafa. the Brazilian versus the Australian. I'm gonna hold my hands up here, guys. I'm gonna download that UFC is it replay or something app that lets me see or lets you watch the recent fights as many times as you like. I'm not sure if there's a charge for it, but I'll find out somehow. For this fight, really, I couldn't find any proper highlights, and really, all I can tell you is that Justin Tafa won by a split decision. So this is, and the highlight that I could find was the commentary was, I think, not being spoken in English, was either being spoken in Spanish or Portuguese. But basically it wasn't English, so I couldn't understand fully what they were saying. I could see the fight, but I would prefer commentary that's in a language that I understand, which is English, which is my first language. But yeah, Jaffa did win that fight by a split decision, and this is another reason why I, after recording this podcast, doing the editing, video editing, and uploading to YouTube and to Spotify and to the other major platforms, I will make sure that I download that app unfailingly. Now on to the next fight, which is the welterweight division. David Zawada versus Ramazan Emeev. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. David Zawada versus Ramazan Emeev. So yeah, the first round, basically the two guys start really strongly and they get right into it, which is what I like. And I hate when the two fighters are just pacing around the octagon. They're just shooting out strikes and trying to scare their opponent or get the opponents to react. But I hate that. I just want someone to do something already because time is going, and you want to see a good fight. So as the fight, the first round goes on, the two guys are still going at it hard, exchanging heavy strikes, blows, and kicks. Ramazan got the first takedown in, and unfortunately, he didn't manage to keep Zawada on the ground for very long. His opponent managed to actually literally spin out of his grip and just broke free. And seconds later, it did look like Ramazan wanted to get another takedown in, but instead ended up clinching Zawada up against the fence. Don't want to read you too much. I can read I can report about the fight. But yeah, I mean, although Ramazan does get one thing I did see in this fight, I did notice is that yeah, Ramazan managed to get about 4 takedowns in this fight, and I think in almost all of them, his opponent Ramazan managed to just squeeze out of it like like it was nothing, either spin out of it, slide out of it, or wriggle out of it, like it was nothing. And just before the third round, even Ramazan Ramazan landed a really heavy strike. Now, there's something the commentators did say that the fight would be hard to judge, and that is true because both guys did put on a really really good performance. Their fight game was really good. Ramazan with his takedowns and Zawada with his striking and his leg kicks. But I mean, both guys did put on a really, really good performance, really, really entertaining fight. And unfortunately, there can only be one winner, and that was Ramazan, who won by a split decision. Right. Now, this fight, which was in the women's bantamweight division, Vanessa Melo versus Sarah Moras, the Brazilian versus the Canadian. That means anything, but just I'm just saying, just talk about the background a little bit. The women's bantamweight division. Now this fight, I have to say that Sarah Moras really got a verbal roasting for her performance in this fight, because even after watching the fight and after watching a performance in this fight, it's called a fight, not some sort of like where you're warming a cross country thing. You just like hopping around in Oscar, but not to insult her. I mean, she's a fighter. She signed up for this. I didn't sign up for this. I'm not a professional fighter by any means of the word or the imagination. I'm just a fan. I like watching the sport. So, credit to her for actually doing what she wants to do, which of course has some painful consequences of being beaten and injured and so on. But after watching her performance in this fight, there was another YouTube video a YouTube video that a YouTuber had posted. I think the guy's name was CSH Combat Sports. Check. I just saw one video, and I didn't see anything else he had posted. But he gave this poor girl a roasting, and after seeing her performance in the cage, that I have to say that I understood what he meant, because Sarah Moras, and credit to her for doing what she loves, for being a professional mixed martial artist, she really spent most of her time in the cage just kind of moving and pacing here and there. She did throw some strikes and leg kicks in there, but she really was concentrating more on just making sure that she didn't get hit, basically moving and pacing around the octagon. She basically hasn't put more energy into it. It was only till the end of the excuse me. It's only until the end of the last round that I could see that she actually kind of stopped that and stood in the middle of the octagon facing her opponent Vanessa Melo head face to face, and just started dishing out some proper strikes, not just giving a jab here and there, strike here and there, leg kick here and there, moving out of the way. I can appreciate that in MMA. If you're a good fighter, you always want to make sure that you do as much damage as possible to your opponent, dish out as much strikes, hooks, punches, leg kicks, takedowns, dish out as much more attacks on your opponents than what you're going to receive in return. Dish out more strikes and more strikes than what your opponent's going to give to you. I can understand that, but unfortunately, it's a fight game. You're not going to go into the octagon there and come out unscathed. Unfortunately, you are going to have to take some abuse if you want to win. You're going to have to take some pain and suffering. It's just what you signed up for. That's just the nature of the game. It's the nature of this beast. And in this fight, it was obvious Vanessa Melo did win. I think at some point the scorecard came up, just I think in the middle of the second round. At that point, Moras had 10 points for, I think, shots to the head, 1 point for a shot to the midsection, 13 points for leg kicks, whilst Melo had 19 points for attacks to the head, shots to the head, 18 points for attacks and shots to her opponent's midsection, and 12 points for shots to basically 12 points for leg kicks. So she was in the lead, and obviously at the end of that match, she won by unanimous decision. All that heavy striking that she was giving, and the heavy striking that strikes that she was dishing out that Moras was trying to avoid, it paid off. The judges saw what she was doing, how she was performing, and well done to her, credit to her, she won. But Sarah Moras, seriously, I'm not sure if her contract is still current with the UFC, if she still has any more fights left in her contract, but hopefully in the next fight she performs a lot better, and unfortunately she stands her ground, faces her opponent toe to toe, head to head, face to face, and dishes out fights, basically, strikes, leg kicks. Unfortunately, you are going to get hurt in this game. Again, as I said before, it's just the nature of this beast. Everybody has seen that, even the people at the highest level, the elite fighters, Conor McGregor, Khabib, George St. Pierre, all those people, they performed. Even if in their record, because they're such good fighters, and there are some fights, of course, that they've lost, but even the fights that they've won, the reason why they're so good and considered one of the best fighters of all time currently at the moment, is because when they get into the octagon, they fight. They attack their opponent. They're of course trying to avoid their opponent as much as possible, but not to the extent that this girl did in this fight. Because Moras, I could see, was just basically circling the octagon so many times and just dishing in strikes and kicks just here and there, and then back to where getting moved. So hopefully in her next fight, depending on her contracts with the UFC and Dana White, hopefully she can do a lot better. Excuse me. So the next fight, Austin Lingo versus Jacob Kilburn, the men's featherweight division. So this fight started strongly in round one. Did it start strong? No, read that again, Ike. So Austin Lingo in the first round got the ball rolling. He dished out some counter strikes. No, if I remember, I'm just talking based off my notes, but if I remember correctly, both guys did start strongly, but I think Lingo basically was just, let's say, the best of fights just at this stage, and he managed to get Kilburn with a really heavy strike from his right hand. And that strike nearly took, basically it did floor Kilburn, but he was back on his feet in next to no time really quickly. And I could see that Lingo just clearly wasn't messing around in the octagon. He was basically going in for the kill. The guy was on fire, and the punches were just you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of those punches, basically. Just to cut the long story short, I mean, you could see basically if you watch that match from start and even the highlights, you can see that Lingo was the clear winner. Okay, so guys, in other news in the mixed martial arts community, I did mention at the beginning of my podcast of this show that Max Holloway, there's been some speculation and talk that since the way he performed against Kattar in the octagon the other night, it was awesome. That potentially he could have a rematch with Conor McGregor since their first fight at the UFC Fight Night 26, which was back in 2013. And there's been a lot of speculation after this, I think, especially after the statement that he made that he's the best boxer in the UFC. I think Conor McGregor, did he come out and say something? I think he replied something. I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure there was something on YouTube and something on Twitter, Instagram, saying something like, are you sure? Just something like that, in probably just to antagonize Holloway just a little bit. Now, if that fight did happen, I wouldn't mind. Because Max's fight game, even in UFC 251, where I'm sure many people agree with me that some BS happened amongst the judges and they gave that win to Alexander Volkanovski. Nothing against Alexander Volkanovski, of course. When it comes to judging a fight, the fighters have no power or control over that. That's down to the judges. But he won, so that's out of both of their hands. He was, in their eyes, he was a better fighter. So yeah, he won. But Max Holloway's fight game, of course, has improved a lot since 2013. So, if Holloway and McGregor was to fight, I wouldn't mind seeing that. It would show that Holloway's fight game has improved immensely over the years, because that was what 7 years ago now. We're now in 2021. So yeah, 7 to 8 years ago. Now, Nathaniel Woods called out Sean O'Malley for a fight, and he did make a jibe about O'Malley's leg injury that he suffered back in UFC 252, which was so bad. I think the injury is caused O'Malley to have something called drop foot, and it was so bad that O'Malley had to be carried on the stretcher. He couldn't. It was just, I think, too dangerous or too much of a risky gamble if he did actually walk out of the octagon or out of the arena on his own feet, even if he was being supported. And I do remember Ben Askren kind of calling him out and insulting him, saying it's a fist fight, you're a pussy, and so Nathaniel made a jibe about O'Malley's leg. I think he said something about just said, imagine O'Malley's leg, and showing O'Malley just gladly replied, so let's scrap then. So I'm assuming that's a fight that's going to be in the works soon, depending what Dana White wants. And in other news, Conor McGregor has said that Khabib is not a true fighter and that he's afraid to fight him. But Conor McGregor over the years has said a lot of things. I have nothing against him. He said a lot of stuff, but Khabib did make it clear at the end of the fight that he had against Justin Gaethje last year. Where the fight was it? UFC what? Yeah, UFC at 254, where he won and added to his record, making it 29-0, that he would be retiring from this. But in that fight, there was so much pressure on him to win. His father just passed away, and I think it felt very different. I think he pointed out himself that his father came to all of his fights, and this time around, not having his father in the crowd, their cage, or at least not having his father watching his fight, it felt very different and very awkward for him. So there was so much pressure on him to win that fight. You can see at the moment that the fight was over, he just crashed his knees and just started crying immediately. So Conor McGregor basically said that Khabib is not a true fighter, that he retired because he's scared of having a rematch with McGregor. That why would Khabib retire? There's still so many great fights to have, fighting the Diaz brothers, your Oliveras, the Fergusons. Why would you want to retire? Now, yeah, given Khabib is only 32 years old, and I think I may be wrong in saying this. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comment section below if you're watching on YouTube again. I think it was stated somewhere that his father did want him to push his record of 29-0. Or no, I think his father did want him to get his record to be at least 30-0. I think that was said some. Again, if I'm wrong, please correct me in the comment section below. Yeah. Now, Michael Chandler has said that he would like to fight Nate Diaz. That really, in reality, what he wants is just fights that will bring him closer to a title fight, at least to a title shot. That I think he even said that fighting Nate Diaz will be very easy for him. Quote for quote his words in a recent interview posted on YouTube: "I would pick Nate up and slam him down on his neck. That tall, long, skinny, fat body, or skinny fat boy. He's out of shape. He hasn't fought in a long while." So yeah, he's calling out Nate Diaz for a fight. Of course, Nate Diaz is one of the elite level fighters. So I'm guessing if that does happen, that will be an interesting match. And yeah, back to Khabib. Yeah, of course, on social media, everybody is aware that Khabib has been in talks with Dana White about coming back to a fight, and there's been rumors that's been speculating not long after Khabib's win against Justin Gaethje at UFC 254. We're just in January 2021 now, but that fight happened in October of 2020, about October-November time, and not soon after that fight, there already was talk for Khabib. There was suspicion, there was speculations, there was arguments, there was rumors that Khabib potentially could be coming back out of retirement. Dana White, and I said this in one of my older podcasts, that Dana White did say that if he would like Khabib to come out of retirement to fight again, and if Khabib was to come out of retirement, he would like to see a rematch of Khabib fighting Conor McGregor. That, mixed martial arts fans such as myself, I'd love to see that. Yes, to be honest, I would like to see that. But his coach, Javier Mendez, who is a coach at AKA the American Kickboxing Academy in California, in the US. It's in the San Jose area. He did reveal in a recent interview, and when speaking to RT Sports, that Khabib would need his mother's permission. I was thinking, wow, but it isn't. It's nothing new that in Khabib's family, in that part of the world, in Dagestan and Russia, that's their culture, and so it's something that is accepted and respected. I mean, Khabib is such an awesome fighter, and he said, quote for quote, that if Khabib decides to return to MMA, and Javier Mendez said this, I agree with that, but also we have to remember one thing: he has to get his mother's permission too. Mother's plan, she has to approve. If she doesn't approve, he can say yes. He has to follow his mother. He said, I promised my mother. Well, his mother has to give him permission as far as I'm concerned, and I would think, knowing of the great person that he is, that is Khabib he's referring to, if he does decide to come back after seeing someone he feels worthy, he's going to have to ask his mother too. So, it would be nice to see Khabib come out of retirement. He's still a young man. Though of course, outside of mixed martial arts, he already has his own wife and kids. He already has his own family, and already he has other commitments, other projects that he's working on outside of the sport. So we know that he's not sitting idly outside of MMA just doing nothing. He is busy doing other working on other projects. But I mean, it would be nice to see Khabib come out of retirement and to fight opponents such as Conor McGregor. So guys, I managed to do the whole episode. If you did enjoy the podcast, again, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And I managed to do this whole entire episode without making a mention of that internet clown, that YouTube clown. His name begins with a J, and I think his brother, the older one that has his own other podcast, that which Mike Tyson and some other people, such as Steve Cook, which is one of those pretty faced fitness models. They've all been on there. I'm not shitting anyone, but they've been on that podcast, and I'm not going to mention his name or his brother's name. So because Charlie thinks that Charlie has said that basically he who shall not be named on this podcast, but I'm sure many people watching and listening, they'll know who I'm talking about. They will know, they will suspect, like myself, that he's just saying all these things and insulting all these fighters and calling out all these fighters, even when some of these fighters, such as Conor McGregor, haven't said anything at all in return. Surprisingly, when I'm not going to say anymore. They're saying all of this and doing all of this so they can get a big money fight, so they still get a big, significant paycheck even when they lose. Because I know that if you don't successfully win a fight, you still do get something. So guys, I'm going to wrap that up. This is Iko Joko number 5, episode 5, show number 5. I do hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you do like the podcast, if you've been listening for as long as you have been now, thank you very much. Very, very grateful. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. You can also catch me on Instagram. My name is Iko Joko1. On Facebook and Twitter, my name is Iko Joko. On Parler, my name is Iko Joko, but for some reason the Parler app is down. I'm assuming it's after what's happened in the US. I heard that Amazon actually pulled their support for the app, so for that reason their servers are down. Also, you can catch my podcast on Spotify, PlayerFM, Listen Notes, SoundCloud, also on Podbean. I'm still trying to get this thing sorted out for the iTunes podcast. Apple, for some reason, so there's so much encryption to get around, basically. But you can also catch me on other platforms, including Google Podcasts as well, and also I think Podcast Addict and Castbox, I think it's something like that. But there's many podcast platforms out there that I'm trying to get my podcast out to, so bear with me. I'm trying to get to as many of them as possible as fast as I can. But once again, guys, thank you very much.